Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
As she mentioned before, I'm Ben James. I'm Chief Innovation Officer of GALE. We're an agency in New York, several other places. But I'm really excited that Jonathan Adashek is here. I think you're kind of a good get for the CES week and stuff like that. Yeah.
Not at all.
No, I mean, for those that will know the
I'm
reference.
sorry to everybody who has to listen to me.
For those that will know the reference, I do feel a little bit like Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney right now of the marketing world. But it's good to see you, and we are going to talk a little bit about using technology to reach fandoms. A little bit of expansion because I think some of this is going to touch on what we talk about, even the meaning of fandoms versus community, some of your past, some IBM's past, that kind of thing. Just a little bit table setting. So you've been the head of marketing for IBM. You are the IBM Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications. You've been there for 2022?
No, 2020. So 6 years, I think.
6 years.
Tomorrow?
Okay,
Something
cool.
like that.
I was.
What's the date today? The 10th? 6 years today?
Yeah, cool. I was, IBM, obviously, busy week for y'all. High brand awareness for the IBM and that kind of thing. But IBM, can you tell us a little bit about the history of IBM to kind of like get to where we are now? Because I'm really curious about your take on IBM and the platform that you introduced, and we'll get into some of that.
Yeah, so IBM is a 113-year-old company. And, I think we're fortunate that we're that company because we've got these principles and values that we fall back on because they make us who we are today. And it helps us as we deal with challenges and questions about what business we should be in or shouldn't be in. And we, I would argue, have reinvented ourselves many times. The clocks on the walls, the typewriters. We've also introduced some interesting technologies that people probably don't realize that we did. So the magnetic stripe on a credit card, the barcode, ATM machines. One of my favorites is LASIK. A bunch of engineers, most people don't realize this, some engineers at IBM around Thanksgiving time came into the office and they were trying to figure out something with a laser. And could the laser draw on the wishbone the right way? And somehow that turned into, we could use this on eyes and doing surgery on eyes. So we've done a lot of different things. And for a long time, we were a company who said we could do everything. And that candidly caused us some problems. And when I got this job offer, I called one of my best friends and told him about it. And he said, it's fantastic. But he said, I have one question for you. What does IBM do? To me, that said there's a lot of green space, but the thing that made it more challenging for me was he was Satya Nadella's chief of staff.
Okay.
And he had no idea what we were doing.
All right.
That said that we were trying to do too many things. So we've gotten much more focused on being the leading hybrid cloud and AI platform company. But for us, it is very much enterprise AI. It is not consumer-facing. We don't do any consumer-facing products at all. And then there's a sprinkle of quantum and consulting that goes with it.
I think that's what's so incredible about it. A lot of people talk about marketing in the B2B space, and I think IBM, from the enterprise position, pretty incredible work. And you introduced a platform, Let's Create. You talked about IBM and its history of reinventions and all of those creations that you mentioned. Pretty incredible. Can you talk a little bit about Let's Create in today's context and how you're using it?
Yeah, so before we had Let's Create, we had 40 plus campaigns in market. I think it was 43 campaigns in market. And so we were arguably fighting with ourselves to get coverage and to get people to understand what we were doing, which led to people not knowing what we were doing. Fundamentally, we create things with our clients. We create solutions that are beneficial to our clients. And that's why we came together with Let's Create. And Let's Create is really what we do. Whether it's our technology teams or our consulting team, we go in and co-create together solutions that are going to help our clients and our partners take advantage of their biggest opportunities and overcome their biggest challenges.
Well, I think the last few decades, IBM's had some pretty incredible partnerships, and it helps as a tee up to the fandom. We'll talk about the definition of fandom in a minute, but a few decades of tennis work, a few decades of golf work. You've been creating with those communities for some time. Can you talk a little bit about how you've benefited from those partnerships and where they're going?
Yeah, I think I inherited the best portfolio of sports sponsorships or sports and entertainment partnerships that anybody could have. We're more than 30 years with Augusta for the Masters. We're more than 30 years with Wimbledon and the All England Lawn Tennis Club, which we just renewed our partnership yesterday. That just got announced today. 30 years plus with the U.S. Open Tennis. And then last year we brought on, we entered into new partnerships with Ferrari from the F1 perspective and UFC, which was a place that a lot of people were like, IBM and UFC, those are strange bedfellows, but it's been an amazing partnership working with them. And we also partner on the Grammys. And for us, it's really about how do we bring our technologies to life? Because a lot of the things that we talk about, whether it's AI or it's cloud or quantum computing, they can be difficult things to, follow along and understand. I like to say I'm not the brightest candle on the menorah. So for me, it's like I need it at a level like brought to life for me. But B, those partnerships allow us to, show the technology in action and give people an idea of what they could do in their organization with that similar approach.
I think that's what's incredible at it. I mean, you say it's not consumer facing, it's more enterprise level, and yet that's what seems to be so special about these. I mean, I'd love to get into how you see success work in these partnerships, even maybe how they're even measured a little bit, like how that works. Because, I think a lot of people are curious about how they make choices in their own, fandom investments and that kind of thing. They seem to be very human touchable kinds of things. Can you get into some of the way that AI actually affects the output of the fan experience and how you see that benefit IBM directly?
Yeah. So fundamentally, if I just how we select, let me just start with how we select our partnerships. They've got to be authentic. They've got to be a place where our technology can make a difference and come to life. Putting our name just on the front of a jersey or, on the side of a billboard or something like that, it doesn't necessarily help us the way we need it to, right? So the partnerships, it allows the fans. I mean, let's just be clear. It allows the organizations to ideally get more fans, to get more passionate fans, and better monetize the fans, right? I mean, that's what this is about. It's about how do you better monetize your base? How do you get them more engaged? How do you get them more excited about what's happening? But showing that technology, like the Masters app, and letting people experience our technology in their hand. We're B2B, but I was talking to somebody who said to me, there's no such thing as B2B. It's B2H. Because at the end of the day, we're still going towards consumers. But I'm focused not on a consumer who's going to go buy one thing. I'm focused on a group of consumers who are actually technology business decision makers, right? And I look at a buying cycle now for our company that is 12 to 22 people that are in a buying group, and that 4 or 5 of them stay in that buying group, and then they rotate out on every buying cycle. So how do you appeal to them where they've got that passion and show them the technology in action? That's why we do these things, because you got to get somebody when they really love the Masters. They really want to, we had they had some crazy number of people who were watching the last year when Tiger walked up 18 on Thursday because people weren't sure if this was the last walk Tiger was going to take up 18. And you're getting them when they're really passionate, and they can then look at it and they go, "Yeah, I remember looking at the app at that point." And there's a natural place to have that follow on. And then for us, you talked about measurement. We're really looking at how we're benefiting the organization, but then the other thing we're looking at is how we engage with the fans, and how that technology is advancing. But then we will bring people in as well to see these events and see it behind the scenes and understand it. And we track very clearly everybody who moves through and follow them through the pipeline.
That's great. I love the first part of what you're saying about not just slapping the logo on the jersey and going for this. And
I don't want to be critical of anybody who decides to do that, because different people, it works for them.
Yeah, there's good reasons to do it in some cases. It leads me to think a lot about the F1 space.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your Ferrari stuff, because it's always struck me how many logos we put on a rocket ship and fire it around a lap at about 220 or higher miles per hour, and it's like, yeah, you're strapping an impression to the rocket ship, but then I think you guys have extended that into much more deep experience and getting behind the scenes, and it seems just like an incredible partnership with Ferrari. Can you talk more about that?
We are so fortunate to be partners with Ferrari. They are such an amazing brand and organization, and the drivers are fantastic, and the principals across the org. But for us, the big thing we're focused on right now with them in this first year was about developing an app that really allowed them to engage in a more meaningful way. And for me, there are 400 million Tifosi around the world. Tifosi are those people who self-identify as passionate Ferrari race fans, right? You go talk to most Italians, or many Italians, I can't say most. You go talk to many Italians and you say, "Who's your team?" Who's your sports team? They're not going to say Juventus or AC Milan or whatever, many of them. They're going to say, "I support the red. I support Ferrari." And they love that. But that's all around the world. You've got 400 million fans. So how do we build an app that allows people to get more engaged with the team and better understand what's going on? That app has the ability for people to send messages to the team. They have the ability to message with each other and create groups, which I think takes us more towards fandom, which is that passion. The group, I look at it as the groups that come together for passion around specific things. There's, when you're in the paddock, and you're hooked up into the paddock with a very specific code, there's the ability to listen in on the team radio that we introduced at the end of the year. That was really amazing to sit there and listen behind the scenes, directly unfiltered to the driver and the team principal. There's AI generated summaries so people understand it. And with this year coming up in 2026, there's a massive change to the cars in F1. And it will be so insightful and I think so helpful for people who are trying to understand what is happening and how the rules, how the rule has changed and how the car is changing.
It's cool. It's empowering, engaging the fans. It is really about participatory storytelling in some kind of way. And
100%.
I wonder. You mentioned you talked about get us to the word fandom, and that is what this is about. Though we kind of all do know what it means, it feels like marketing has its buzzwords. It feels relatively new that we're using this a lot. Can you talk some about what fandom actually means to you, and kind of when you can, what are the guiding principles to getting the most out of working with fandoms?
For me, fandom, it's, as I said before, it's about that passion and getting people who are passionate together and giving them the ability to connect and connect in meaningful ways or unique ways. And for us, there's a piece of the Ferrari app that allows you to do that. But there's also the opportunity in the Masters app or Wimbledon or US Open or the Grammys that allow you to get new insights and new experience that you can then go take, and you're talking to somebody and you're like, oh, the view of, I would argue, the view of water cooler chat from the old days has changed, and this gives you new insights of what's going on. Our work that we do with UFC and the insights engine that we give, the ability for, like, my son is almost 16. He'll be 16 next week, and he's passionate about UFC. He loves it. And he loves the new stuff that we are introducing with UFC on the insights engine, because it gives him new insights that he then will call his friends about, or they'll be over and they'll be talking about what's that new insight. And it just gives them a deeper connection. It makes their shared connection around being a fan of it that much deeper. And I think that's where fandom is. It's deeper connections on the passion that you've got for what you're fans of.
Walk us through some of the UFC stuff. Like, can you get into some of the collection of data points? Like, what are the kinds of things that you're picking up, and then how are those translating into more engaging experience? Like, it's a pretty intense one. Yeah, it's cool.
UFC is amazing. They're great partners, and there's so many of them. Great people at that organization, and they're so smart. One guy who I work with quite a bit, his name's Alon Cohen, and he's the head of innovation for TKO. So it's across WWE and UFC and PBR and other stuff. And we worked with Alon and his team to figure out, how do you take historical data that they had spent a lot of time on to get it properly structured, but how do you take historical data and marry that with lifetime data out of a match and get new insights out of that match and constantly update that? Because if you and I were in the octagon and fighting in a UFC match, while we're standing, it's one type of a match. When you knock me in the face and I fall on the mat, and then you start beating me on the mat or get me in some sort of a submission hold, it's a totally different, like, everything resets at that moment. And then how do you reset the lifetime data and then make sure you're pulling from the relevant historical data and marry that up? And what it's really doing right now is it's feeding into the commentators on a lifetime basis, so that as Joe Rogan and others are calling the fights, they get these insights that are coming through that allow them to talk about it during the fight. And then you also will see some of it on screen as well.
It's good practical examples of real-time AI, I guess. And then, how much are you and your teams actually using AI to help create these experiences and think about what you're going to do with them next?
Oh, we use AI all the time. Not just for these, but for other things that we've done. We were here in Vegas a couple of years ago for Adobe Summit, and we did a takeover of the Sphere. And this was, I think, one of the early takeovers of the Sphere, and we turned it into a fishbowl. And using AI, we allowed the ideation phase of the process to go from 15 days down to 2 days. And what we also enabled to happen there was, I've got a team of 300 creatives in my organization. We allowed them to actually be more creative and do the things that they like to do. Because what it allowed them to do was say, it was about good data and bad data and trusting what you created, and it was different fish represented problems. So instead of a goldfish, it was a 24-karat goldfish, or there was a disco ball fish, or there was a hamster fish. And as they were working through them, they got even more creative. They're like, oh, what if we did this? So there became an origami fish. Or there was a data missing fish. So there was like a fish that had a big hole in the middle of it. So it allowed people to be more creative. And I think it really got people much more comfortable with using AI. Because at the beginning, and I still hear it, a lot of people were going, AI is going to take away my job. And AI was going to cut out the creators first. And I think that's wrong. I think AI is going to complement people. There will be people who lose jobs over this. Let's be clear about that. But people who are not using AI are going to be the ones who suffer the most. But what has happened is, since we've put AI into the hands of our creatives, Before that, they were spending 80% of their time on derivative assets. So they would create one thing, and then 80% of the remaining time would be done on derivatives of that. Now that number is 40% and dropping steadily. So it's allowing people to do their jobs more effectively.
I mean, it seems there's certainly a lot of excitement to figure out how to use it in the most effective ways, maybe most empathetic ways. There's also a lot of pressure to use it that's coming to a lot of brand leaders, from boards and other groups. In all those examples and experiences, do you have any guidance, any practical advice for people looking to use it? Maybe pitfalls to avoid, or like ways to experiment that you just think is like key advice for employing it in your day-to-day use?
There are a few things I'd say. First and foremost is you got to work on the data and make sure your data is properly structured on the back end. You can't have AI without IA, right? It just doesn't work. And it might feel like you're going slow, but it's going to be a savior in the future. That's one. Two is find ways to encourage the teams and the people you work with and your organization to test it. And it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to take a risk. One of the things we do inside the company is, I'm fortunate at IBM, we're expected to take 40 hours of learning a year. And I take learning that helps me get better at AI, prompting and those sorts of things. I got a long, long way to go. But one of the other things that we do is we did something called the Watson X Challenge. And we said to people across the company, we said, form teams. Doesn't have to be with the person you work with. It could be with whoever it is. Here are 10 or so categories. Go develop AI solutions that would solve a problem in one of those categories. What had happened the first time we did it 3 years ago, we had about 180,000 people do this 2-week challenge and develop solutions. And we took some of those solutions to market and sell them to clients today. And it got people very comfortable with using AI and understanding how to work in an organization that is also using AI. The last thing I'd say is do some testing, right? We ran a test last year and we said we're going to use country X. I'll just pick Sweden. Sweden is the control market and Saudi Arabia is the test market. And we're going to just run something, and we're going to run a test that's not giant so that we're not going to sink the ship if it fails. But run a test, put a boundary on how long that test is, and, give it a shot. If it works, great. If it doesn't, learn from that too.
So we have just over a minute to go, I think, and we're really just at the start of the week. I'm just widen out from this for a minute. Is there anything that you're seeing so far at CES that you're particularly excited about, just in the world?
I think that CES has grown so much to enable. For me, I'm really looking at the B2B side of things, yeah. And I love how much B2B has grown here, and the people that are here that I get to learn from and spend time with, people who I run into or sit next to. I sat next to somebody at dinner last night who I'd never met before, and it was a fascinating conversation about what they're doing at a finance company around media sales. And it just, like, before I sat down, I was like, what the hell is this finance company doing media sales for? But it now makes sense, and I'm like jotting my notes down and saying, okay, here's something we can learn. So I'm excited about everything, and I'm trying to take learnings from every session I'm at.
That's awesome. Well, it's cool to think of what can come out of this week. It's really nice to talk to you, and thanks so much for doing this.
Thank
Really
you.
Appreciate it. And thanks to Brand Innovators for having us. We really appreciate it. So
thank you.